60 questions. No breaks, no skipping. This is a full AZ-900 exam simulation. Every topic Microsoft tests, every trap they write into the options, every distinction that separates a pass from a fail. You have access to this as a member, and that means you get the complete series in one uninterrupted sitting, exactly the way the real exam works. Set a timer, pause after every question, write your answer down before I reveal it. At the end, score yourself out of 60. 50 or above, book your exam this week. You are ready. Below 40, stay to the end. The explanations will tell you exactly where to focus your remaining study time. Question 1. A company is planning to host an application on a set of virtual machines in Azure. They want to ensure that the application survives a region-wide failure in Azure. Which of the following concept needs to be considered to fulfill this requirement? Options. A. Disaster recovery. B. Elasticity. C. Agility. D. Scalability. The key phrase here is region-wide failure. That's your biggest hint. This is not about scaling or speed. It's about surviving a catastrophic outage. Correct answer. Disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is the strategy and process for restoring services after a major failure, like an entire Azure region going down. Azure provides tools like Azure Site Recovery to replicate workloads to a secondary region. This ensures your app keeps running even when a whole region becomes unavailable. Why the other options are wrong? Option B, elasticity. Elasticity means automatically adjusting resources based on demand. It has nothing to do with surviving a region failure. Option C, agility. Agility refers to how quickly cloud resources can be provisioned or released. It is about speed, not recovery. Option D, scalability. Scalability is the ability to increase or decrease capacity for workloads. It does not protect against failures. Quick memory tip, region goes down equals disaster recovery. Need more power equals scalability. Auto resize elasticity. Question 2. Your company is planning on using the Azure App Service to host their set of web applications. As part of the App Service plan, does Microsoft automatically provide professional services and customizations to applications hosted in Azure Web Apps? Options. A. Yes. B. No. This question checks what is included in an Azure App Service plan. It tests the boundary between what PaaS manages automatically versus what requires a paid support plan. Correct answer. B. No Azure App Service is a PaaS offering. Microsoft manages the infrastructure, OS patching, and hosting platform. However, it does not include professional services, consulting, or custom application changes. For dedicated support, companies must separately purchase an Azure support plan, developer, standard, or professional direct. Why the other options are wrong? Option A. Yes, this is incorrect. No app service plan tier includes automatic professional services or application customizations. That's a paid, separate engagement. Quick memory tip, app service equals host your app, not fix your app. Professional help, buy a support plan. Question 3. A company wants to migrate their current on-premise servers to Azure. They want to ensure that the servers are running even if a single Azure data center goes down. Which of the following terms refers to the solution that needs to be in place to fulfill this requirement? Options. A. Fault tolerance. B. Elasticity. C. Scalability. D. Low latency. Notice the key phrase, single Azure data center goes down, not an entire region. This is about keeping systems running through a partial failure, a high availability concept. Correct answer. A. Fault tolerance. Fault tolerance is the ability of a system to continue working normally even when a component, like a single data center, fails. In Azure, this is achieved using availability zones, which are physically separate data centers within the same region. If one zone fails, the others keep your servers running seamlessly. Why the other options are wrong? Option B, elasticity. Elasticity is about dynamically scaling resources based on usage. It does not help when a data center goes down. Option C, scalability. Scalability handles capacity increases for growing workloads. It has no role in surviving hardware or data center failures. Option D, low latency. Low latency refers to minimizing the delay in data transmission. It is a performance concept, not a resiliency strategy. Quick memory tip, one data center fails equals fault tolerance. Whole region fails equals disaster recovery. More resources needed equals scalability. Question 4, exam note. Drag the appropriate term from the column on the left to its description on the right. Match each term to its correct definition. This drag and drop question tests your knowledge of 4 core cloud financial concepts. Each term has a very specific definition. Mix them up and you'll get it wrong. Correct answer. Economies of scale is the ability to reduce costs and gain efficiency when operating at a larger scale. Capital expenditure, CapEx, is the upfront spending of money on physical infrastructure and then deducting that upfront expense over time. Operational expenditure, OpEx, there is no upfront cost as you pay for a service or product as you use it. Consumption-based model allows end users only pay for the resources that they use. CapEx is the traditional model. You buy physical hardware upfront and depreciate the cost over time. This is how on-premises data centers work. OpEx is the cloud model. No upfront cost, you just pay as you use services. Economies of scale is why cloud providers like Microsoft can offer lower prices. They operate at massive global scale. The consumption-based model is a direct result of OpEx. You pay only for what you actually consume. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, incorrectly assigns allows end users only pay for the resources they use to economies of scale. That's the consumption-based model definition. Option B, incorrectly maps CapEx as a pay-as-you-go model. That's OpEx's definition. Option D, swaps definitions between all 4 terms, making all 4 matches incorrect. Quick memory tip, CapEx equals buy upfront, old way. OpEx equals pay-as-you-go, cloud way. Consumption equals use it, pay it. Economies of scale, big, cheaper. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 5. Exam note. This question requires you to select the correct option from the dropdown. Which cloud model provides the greatest degree of flexibility? Options: A, private cloud, B, hybrid cloud, C, public cloud. This is a drop-down style question asking which cloud model offers the most flexibility. Think about which model gives you the most choices, public, private, or both combined. Correct answer, hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud combines both private and public cloud environments, giving organizations the greatest flexibility. You can run sensitive workloads privately on your own infrastructure and scale out to the public cloud when needed. This best of both worlds approach means you choose the right platform for each workload. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, private cloud. Private cloud is hosted entirely on your own infrastructure or a dedicated environment. It offers control but limited flexibility. You can't easily burst to public resources. Option C, public cloud. Public cloud is fully hosted by a provider like Microsoft Azure. While highly scalable, it doesn't give you the option to host workloads on specialized or on-premises hardware when required. Quick memory tip, hybrid equals flexible, mix of private plus public. Private equals control, public scale. Question 6. A company has several on-premise computers that run Windows 10. They want to map a network drive from these machines onto Azure storage. Which of the following would you consider fulfilling this requirement? Options: A, an Azure SQL database, B, Azure Synapse Analytics, C, Azure Storage Account, Blob Service, D, Azure Storage Account, File Service. The key phrase is map a network drive. This is a very specific storage feature. Only one Azure storage type supports drive mapping from Windows machines. Correct answer, D, Azure Storage Account, File Service. Azure Files provides fully managed cloud file shares accessible via the SMB, Server Message Block Protocol. Multiple Windows 10 computers can map the Azure file share as a network drive simultaneously, just like a traditional on-premises file server. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure SQL Database, a relational database for structured data, cannot function as a file share or network drive. Option B, Azure Synapse Analytics. Azure Synapse Analytics is designed for large-scale analytical queries on big data. It is not a file storage or network drive solution. Option C, Blob Service. Azure Blob Storage is for unstructured data, images, videos, backups, accessed via REST API HTTP. It cannot be mapped as a network drive. Quick memory tip, map a drive Azure Files SMB. Blob store files via API. SQL databases only. Question 7. Which of the following services is a distributed network of servers that can efficiently deliver web content to users? Options: A, Azure Cosmos DB, B, Azure App Services, C, Azure Traffic Manager, D, Azure Content Delivery Network, CDN. Key phrases: distributed network of servers and deliver web content. Think about which service caches content close to end users for faster delivery. Correct answer, Azure Content Delivery Network, CDN. Azure CDN is a globally distributed network of servers called points of presence, POPs, that caches web content like images, videos, and scripts closer to users. This reduces latency significantly because users get content from a nearby edge server instead of a distant origin server. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, Azure Cosmos DB. Cosmos DB is a globally distributed NoSQL database for storing and querying data. It does not serve or cache web content. Option B, Azure App Services. App Service is a PaaS platform for hosting web applications. It hosts your app at the origin, but does not distribute cached content globally. Option C, Azure Traffic Manager. Traffic Manager is a DNS-based load balancer that routes users to the closest or best performing region. It routes traffic but does not cache or deliver content. Quick memory tip, CDN equals cache content globally, fast delivery. Traffic Manager equals route traffic. App Service equals host the app. Question 8. Your company has an Azure environment that contains resources in several regions. A company policy states that administrators must only be allowed to create additional Azure resources in a region country where their office is located. Select the correct option to meet this requirement. Options: A, Azure Lock on Resource Group. B, Reservation. C, Management Group. D, Azure Policy. Key phrase, restrict resource creation to specific regions. This is a governance compliance task. You need a tool that enforces rules on what Azure resources can be created and where. Correct answer, Azure Policy. Azure Policy allows you to create and enforce rules, called policy definitions, across your Azure environment. You can create a policy that only allows resource creation in approved regions and apply it at the subscription level. Any resource creation outside those regions will be automatically denied. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, Azure Lock on Resource Group. Azure locks prevent accidental deletion or modification of existing resources. They do not restrict which region resources can be created in. Option B, Reservation. Azure reservations are used to save costs by committing to 1-year or 3-year plans for compute resources. They have no governance or restriction capabilities. Option C, Management Group. Management groups are containers to organize subscriptions and apply policies across them. However, the management group itself doesn't enforce region restrictions. That's done by attaching an Azure policy to it. Quick memory tip, Azure Policy equals enforce rules, what, where, how. Lock equals protect resources. Reservation equals save money. Question 9. Which of the following statements regarding Azure Government Service is correct? Options. A, separate data centers are used. B, standard Azure data centers are used. C, only network connectivity through ExpressRoute is allowed. D, there are more reserved subnet IP addresses than with standard Azure subnets. This question tests your knowledge of Azure Government, Microsoft's dedicated cloud for U.S. government agencies. Focus on what makes Azure Government physically and logically different from standard Azure. Correct answer, separate data centers are used. Azure Government is a physically and logically isolated cloud environment built exclusively for U.S. federal, state, and local government agencies and their partners. It uses dedicated separate data centers, not shared with the commercial Azure cloud, to meet strict compliance requirements like FedRAMP, ITAR, and DoD. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, standard Azure data centers are used. This is false. Azure Government uses completely separate, dedicated infrastructure to maintain data sovereignty and compliance. Option C, only network connectivity through ExpressRoute is allowed. Azure Government supports multiple connectivity options, including the Internet, VPN, and ExpressRoute. It does not restrict to ExpressRoute only. Option D, there are more reserved subnet IP addresses than with standard Azure subnets. This is incorrect. Azure Government follows the same IP address reservation rules as standard Azure subnets. Quick memory tip, Azure Government separate data centers for U.S. government. Isolated, dedicated, and FedRAMP compliant. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within next 24 hours. Question 10. How can the IT department ensure that employees at the company's retail stores can access company applications only from approved tablet devices? Options. A, SSO. B, multi-factor authentication. C, Azure Policy. D, Microsoft Entra conditional access phase, only from approved tablet devices. This is about device-based access control. You need a solution that checks not just WHO is logging in, but what device they're using. Correct answer. Microsoft Entra Conditional Access. Microsoft Entra Conditional Access, formerly Azure AD Conditional Access, enables you to require users to access your applications only from approved or managed devices. You can create policies that enforce device compliance as a condition before granting access, ensuring only approved tablets can reach company applications. Why the other options are wrong. Option SSO, single sign-on. SSO via Microsoft Entra ID allows a user to sign in once and access multiple applications. However, it does not verify or restrict based on the device being used. Option Multi-Factor Authentication, MFA. Microsoft Entra MFA provides additional identity security via a second verification step. It verifies the user but does not check or enforce which device is being used. Option Azure Policy. Azure Policy enforces compliance rules on Azure resources, VMs, storage, etc., not on user access conditions or devices. Quick memory tip, conditional access, right user, right device, right location. MFA equals verify user only. SSO, one login, many apps. Remember this, Azure Policy controls what resources can be deployed. Conditional access controls who can sign in and from where. Two different layers of governance. Know both. Question 11, exam note. This question requires you to select the correct option from the dropdown. Options: A, rule, B, rights, C, role, D, review. This is a fill-in-the-blank dropdown question about a very commonly tested Azure acronym. You need to know what RBAC stands for, specifically the R. Correct answer, role. RBAC stands for Role-Based Access Control. In Azure, RBAC provides fine-grained access management to Azure resources. Instead of giving everyone full access, you assign users a role, like reader, contributor, or owner, that grants only the permissions needed for their job. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, rule. RBAC is not rule-based access control. Rule-based control is a different concept sometimes used in networking, firewall rules, not Azure Identity Management. Option B, rights. Rights-based access control is not a recognized term in Azure or Identity Management standards. Option D, review. Review does not form a known access control acronym. Access reviews are a separate feature in Microsoft Entra ID used to audit user access periodically. Quick memory tip, RBAC equals role-based access control. Assign a role. Grant only what's needed. Least privilege equals best practice. Question 12. A company is planning on setting up a solution in Azure. The solution would have the following key requirement. Provides a platform for creating workflows. Which of the following would be best suited for this requirement? Options. A, Azure Databricks. B, Azure Logic Apps. C, Azure App Service. D, Azure Application Insights. The key phrase is creating workflows. Think automation and visual process building. One Azure service is specifically designed to build and automate business workflows without heavy coding. Correct answer, B, Azure Logic Apps. Azure Logic Apps is a cloud-based platform for creating and running automated workflows that integrate apps, data, services, and systems. It provides a visual designer with hundreds of pre-built connectors like Office 365, Salesforce, SQL, etc., making it ideal for business process automation with little or no code. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, Azure Databricks. Databricks is an analytics platform built on Apache Spark. It is designed for big data processing and machine learning, not workflow automation. Option C, Azure App Service. App Service is a PaaS platform for hosting web applications and APIs. It does not provide a workflow creation platform. Option D, Azure Application Insights. Application Insights is an application performance monitoring, APM, tool used to detect anomalies and diagnose issues in apps. It has no workflow creation capabilities. Quick memory tip. Logic Apps equals workflows and automation, no code needed. Databricks, big data. App Insights equals monitor apps. Question 13. What is the new data privacy and information protection regulation that took effect across Europe in May 2018? Options. A, PCI DSS. B, ISO. C, GDPR. FedRAMP. Key phrases, Europe, data privacy, May 2018. These all point to one specific regulation. This is a compliance and standards knowledge question. Correct answer, GDPR. GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, is a European Union regulation that came into effect on May 25, 2018. It governs how organizations collect, store, and process personal data of EU residents, regardless of where the organization is based. Microsoft Azure is GDPR compliant and provides tools to help customers meet their GDPR obligations. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, PCI DSS. PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, is a global standard for protecting credit card data. It is not specific to Europe or general data privacy. Option B, ISO, International Organization for Standardization, defines international standards across industries worldwide. It is not a government regulation and did not specifically come into effect in May 2018. Option D, FedRAMP. FedRAMP, Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, is a U.S. government framework for assessing cloud security. It has nothing to do with European data privacy. Quick memory tip, GDPR equals Europe Data Privacy 2018, FedRAMP USA Government, PCI DSS equals credit cards, ISO equals global standards. Question 14. A company is planning on setting up a solution in Azure. The solution would have the following key requirement. Gives the ability to host a big data analysis service for machine learning. Which of the following would be best suited for this requirement? Options. A. Azure Databricks. B. Azure Logic Apps. C. Azure App Service. D. Azure Application Insights. Key phrases. Big data analysis and machine learning. Think large-scale data processing. One Azure service is built specifically on Apache Spark for data engineering and ML workloads. Correct answer, A. Azure Databricks. Azure Databricks is a fast, easy, and collaborative Apache Spark-based analytics platform. It is purpose-built for big data analytics and machine learning workloads. Data engineers, data scientists, and analysts use it to build ML models, process massive data sets, and create data pipelines at scale. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, Azure Logic Apps. Logic Apps is for workflow automation and business process integration, not for big data or machine learning. Option C, Azure App Service. App Service is a PaaS platform for hosting web apps and APIs. It has no big data or ML capabilities. Option D, Azure Application Insights. Application Insights is an application monitoring tool that detects performance issues and anomalies. It is not used for big data analysis or ML model building. Quick memory tip, Databricks equals big data plus machine learning Apache Spark. Logic Apps automate workflows. App Insights monitor apps. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within next 24 hours. Question 15. Which one of the following systems are used to determine Azure costs for each billing period? Options. A. The Azure Pricing Calculator. B. The Azure Website. C. Usage meters. D. Number of created virtual machines. This question asks how Azure actually calculates your bill at the end of each period. Think about what Azure tracks behind the scenes to measure your actual consumption. Correct answer, usage meters. Azure uses usage meters to track how much of each resource you consume throughout the billing period. Every Azure resource, VM, storage, bandwidth, etc., has associated meters that record usage in units like hours, GB, or transactions. At the end of the billing cycle, these meters calculate your total bill based on what you actually consumed. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, the Azure Pricing Calculator. The pricing calculator is a planning and estimation tool. You use it before deploying to estimate costs. It does not determine your actual bill. Option B, the Azure Website. The Azure Website provides general product information and documentation. It plays no role in billing calculations. Option D, number of created virtual machines. Simply counting VMs does not determine cost. What matters is how long each VM ran, its size, disk type, region, all tracked by usage meters. Quick memory tip, usage meters equals actual billing tracker. Pricing calculators estimate before you deploy. VMs alone don't tell the full cost story. Question 16. A company is planning on setting up a solution in Azure. The solution would have the following key requirement. Give the ability to detect and diagnose anomalies in web apps. Which of the following would be best suited for this requirement? Options. A. Azure Databricks. B. Azure Logic Apps. C. Azure App Service. D. Azure Application Insights. Key phrases, detect and diagnose anomalies, and web apps. This is about monitoring and observability. One Azure service is specifically built for application performance monitoring. Correct answer, D. Azure Application Insights. Azure Application Insights is an application performance monitoring (APM) service that automatically detects performance anomalies, tracks exceptions, monitors request rates, and helps diagnose issues in web applications. It provides live dashboards, smart detection alerts, and end-to-end transaction tracing, all designed to help you find and fix problems fast. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure Databricks. Databricks is for big data analytics and machine learning. It does not monitor or diagnose web app performance. Option B, Azure Logic Apps. Logic Apps is for workflow automation. It has no capabilities to detect anomalies in web applications. Option C, Azure App Service. App Service is the hosting platform for your web app. While it provides some basic diagnostics, it is not designed for in-depth anomaly detection and performance monitoring like Application Insights. Quick memory tip: App Insights equals detect and diagnose web app issues. Think of it as a health monitor for your application. Question 17. Azure services can go through several phases in a service lifecycle. What are the three phases called? Options: A, preview phase, general availability phase, and unpublished. B, private preview, public preview, and general availability. C, announced, coming soon, and live. D, development phase, QA phase, and live phase. This question tests your knowledge of how Azure releases new services to the public. Think about the journey a new Azure feature takes, from limited testing to full public release. Correct answer: private preview, public preview, and general availability. Azure follows a three-phase lifecycle for releasing services. In private preview, the feature is available to select customers only. You must apply or be invited. In public preview, anyone can test the feature for evaluation, but it may not have an SLA. In general availability, GA, the feature is fully tested, production ready, and available to all Azure customers with full SLA support. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, preview phase, general availability phase, and unpublished. Unpublished is not a valid Azure lifecycle phase. This option also collapses private and public preview into one unnamed phase. Option C, announced, coming soon, and live. These are informal marketing terms, not the official Azure Service Lifecycle phase names. Option D, development phase, QA phase, and live phase. These are generic software development terms, not the official Azure Service Release phases. Quick memory tip: private preview, public preview, GA. Invite only. Everyone tests, everyone uses. Question 18. A company is planning on setting up a solution in Azure. The solution would have the following key requirement: allows the hosting of web-based applications. Which of the following would be best suited for this requirement? Options: A, Azure Databricks. B, Azure Logic Apps. C, Azure App Service. D, Azure Application Insights. Key phrase: hosting of web-based applications. This is a straightforward PaaS hosting question. One Azure service is purpose-built for deploying and running web apps without managing servers. Correct answer: C, Azure App Service. Azure App Service is a fully managed platform as a service, PaaS, that lets you build, deploy, and scale web applications, REST APIs, and mobile backends. It supports multiple languages like .NET, Java, Node.js, Python, PHP, and handles infrastructure, patching, and scaling automatically, so developers focus purely on code. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure Databricks. Databricks is for big data analytics and machine learning using Apache Spark. It is not a web app hosting platform. Option B, Azure Logic Apps. Logic Apps is for building automated workflows and integrations between services. It does not host web applications. Option D, Azure Application Insights. Application Insights is a monitoring tool that tracks performance and detects anomalies. It monitors apps. It does not host them. Quick memory tip: App Service hosts your web app. Logic Apps equals automate. Databricks equals data. App Insights equals monitor. Question 19, exam note. This question requires you to evaluate the text inside to determine if it is correct. Rehost lift integration strategy moves the on-premises solution to Azure without modification. Select no change needed if the above statement is correct. Otherwise, select the correct answer. Options: A, rebuild. B, re-architect. C, no change needed. D, refactor/repackage. This is an evaluate the statement style question about cloud migration strategies. Key phrase: without modification. Which migration strategy moves things exactly as they are? Correct answer: no change needed. Rehost, also called lift and shift, is exactly the strategy that moves on premises workloads to Azure as is, with no changes to the application code or architecture. It's the fastest migration approach and is ideal when you want to quickly move to the cloud while minimizing risk and cost. Azure Migrate is commonly used to execute lift and shift migrations. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, rebuild. Rebuild means recreating the application from scratch using cloud-native technologies. This requires significant effort and code changes, the opposite of no modification. Option B, re-architect. Re-architect means redesigning the application architecture to take full advantage of cloud capabilities, like microservices. This involves major structural changes. Option D, refactor, repackage. Refactor means making minor code or packaging changes, like containerizing an app, to improve cloud compatibility. It still involves modification. Quick memory tip, lift and shift equals no changes, move as is. Refactor equals tweak it. Re-architect equals redesign it. Rebuild equals start over. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 20. A company wants to host an application on a set of virtual machines. The application must be made available 99.99% of the time. In order to comply with the SLA requirement, what is the minimum number of availability zones that should be used to host the application? Options: A, 1, B, 2, 3, D, 4. This question tests your knowledge of Azure SLAs and availability zones. Key phrase, 99.99% availability. You need to know the minimum zone count to achieve this SLA. Correct answer, 2. Azure guarantees a 99.99% SLA for virtual machines when they are deployed across 2 or more availability zones within the same region. Each availability zone is a physically separate data center with independent power, cooling, and networking. If one zone goes down, the other zone keeps your application running, meeting the 99.99% uptime requirement. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, 1. A single availability zone does not protect against a data center failure. Azure only provides a 99.9% SLA for a single VM with premium SSD, not 99.99%. Option C, 3. While deploying across 3 zones improves resilience further, the minimum required for 99.99% SLA is 2. 3 zones are not required to meet this threshold. Option D, 4. Most Azure regions only have 3 availability zones. Requiring 4 is not applicable and unnecessary for the stated SLA. Quick memory tip, 99.99% SLA equals minimum 2 availability zones. 1 zone is good. 2 zones 99.99% guaranteed. Question 21. You have an on-premises network that contains 100 servers. You need to recommend a solution that provides additional resources to your users. The solution must minimize capital and operational expenditure costs. What should you include in the recommendation? Options: A, hybrid cloud. B, private cloud. C, complete migration to the public cloud. D, additional data center. Key phrases: existing 100 servers on premises, plus additional resources, minimize CapEx and OpEx. You need to extend capacity without replacing existing infrastructure or building new data centers. Correct answer, hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud is the perfect fit here. The existing 100 servers stay on premises, no migration cost equals low CapEx, and new additional resources are hosted in the public cloud. No new hardware equals low CapEx, pay as you go equals low OpEx. This model lets you extend capacity cost effectively without abandoning your current infrastructure investment. Why the other options are wrong? Option B, private cloud. Building a private cloud to host new resources requires purchasing additional hardware and infrastructure. This increases CapEx significantly. Option C, complete migration to the public cloud. Migrating all 100 existing servers to the public cloud involves high migration costs and effort, which increases both CapEx and OpEx unnecessarily. Option D, additional data center. Building a new data center requires massive upfront capital expenditure for hardware, facilities, and staffing, directly contradicting the requirement. Quick memory tip, keep existing servers plus add cloud resources equals hybrid cloud. Minimizes both CapEx and OpEx. Question 22. You are working on understanding all the key terms when it comes to international standards, data privacy, and data protection policies. Which of the following pertains to the following? An organization that defines international standards across all industries. Options: A, Azure Government. B. GDPR, C. ISO, D. NIST. This question is about identifying the correct compliance/standards body from its description. Key phrase, international standards across all industries. Think global, cross-industry. Correct answer, C. ISO, International Organization for Standardization, is an independent, non-governmental international body that develops and publishes standards covering virtually every industry, from technology and healthcare to food safety and manufacturing. Azure holds multiple ISO certifications, like ISO 27001 for information security, demonstrating compliance with these global standards. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure Government. Azure Government is a dedicated cloud environment for U.S. government agencies, not a standards organization. Option B, GDPR. GDPR is a European Union data privacy regulation, not a standards body. It applies specifically to personal data protection in Europe. Option D, NIST. NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, defines standards used specifically by the United States government, not across all industries globally. Quick memory tip. ISO equals global standards, all industries. NIST equals U.S. government. GDPR, Europe data privacy. Question 23. A company has set up an Azure account and subscription. They want to host a solution based on Docker containers to deploy and manage the container-based solution. Which of the following service can be used for this requirement? Options: A, Azure App Service, B, Azure Data Lake Analytics, C, Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets, D, Azure Kubernetes. Key phrases: Docker containers, deploy and manage. This points to container orchestration. One Azure service is specifically built to manage containerized workloads at scale. Correct answer, Azure Kubernetes. Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS, is a fully managed container orchestration service based on open source Kubernetes. It automates the deployment, scaling, and management of Docker containers. AKS removes the burden of managing the underlying Kubernetes infrastructure, so teams focus on deploying and running containerized applications. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure App Service. App Service is for hosting web apps and APIs. While it supports containers to some extent, it is not designed to orchestrate and manage large-scale Docker container deployments. Option B, Azure Data Lake Analytics. This is an on-demand analytics service for big data processing. It has no relevance to Docker container management. Option C, Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets. VM scale sets create and manage groups of load-balanced virtual machines, not containers. Containers run on top of VMs, but are managed separately by AKS. Quick memory tip. Docker manage at scale equals AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. VMs through containers. App Service equals web apps only. Question 24. Your company plans to migrate all on-premises data to Azure. You need to identify whether Azure complies with the company's regional requirements. What should you use? Options: A, Azure Portal, B, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, C, Azure Trust Center, D, Azure Marketplace. Key phrase: identify whether Azure complies. This is about checking compliance documentation and certifications. You need the right Microsoft resource that lists compliance offerings, certifications, and regional regulations. Correct answer: Azure Trust Center. Microsoft Trust Center is a dedicated web resource that provides detailed information about Microsoft's security, privacy, compliance, and transparency practices across all cloud products, including Azure. It lists all compliance certifications, like ISO, SOC, GDPR, FedRAMP, and helps organizations verify whether Azure meets their regional and industry-specific compliance requirements. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure Portal. The Azure Portal is used to create, manage, and monitor Azure resources. It does not provide compliance certification documentation or regional regulatory information. Option B, Microsoft Defender for Cloud. This tool monitors your Azure environment for security threats and vulnerabilities. It does not list Azure's compliance certifications or regulatory coverage. Option D, Azure Marketplace. Azure Marketplace is an online store for third-party and Microsoft software solutions. It has no role in verifying compliance certifications. Quick memory tip: Trust Center, check Azure's compliance certifications. Think, can I trust Azure for my region? Trust Center. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 25. You are working on understanding all the key terms when it comes to international standards, data privacy, and data protection policies. Which of the following pertains to the following? An organization that defines standards used by the United States government. Options: A. Azure Government. B. GDPR. C. ISO. D. NIST. Key phrase: standards used by the United States government, very specific to the U.S. federal context. This narrows it down to a U.S.-specific standards body. Correct answer: D. NIST. NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, is a U.S. federal agency that develops technology, measurement, and security standards used across U.S. government agencies. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework, CSF, is widely adopted to manage and reduce cybersecurity risk. Azure aligns with NIST standards and supports customers in meeting NIST compliance requirements. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure Government. Azure Government is a dedicated cloud platform for U.S. government agencies. It's a product, not a standards organization. Option B, GDPR. GDPR is a European Union data privacy regulation. It is entirely unrelated to U.S. government standards. Option C, ISO. ISO defines international standards across all industries globally. It is not specific to the United States government. Quick memory tip: NIST equals U.S. government standards. ISO was global. GDPR, European data privacy. Keep them in their lanes. Question 26. Your team has limited experience with writing custom code, but it sees tremendous value in automating several important business processes. Which of the following options is your team's best option? Options: A. Azure Functions. B. Azure App Service. C. Azure Logic Apps. D. Azure Kubernetes Service. Key phrases: limited coding experience plus automating business processes. Think low-code, no-code automation. One Azure service is specifically designed for non-developers to automate workflows visually. Correct answer: Azure Logic Apps. Azure Logic Apps provides a visual, low-code, no-code designer with hundreds of pre-built connectors to automate business workflows. Teams with limited coding experience can drag and drop actions to connect apps, trigger processes, and automate tasks. No deep programming knowledge needed. It's perfect for automating approvals, notifications, data sync, and more. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure Functions. Azure Functions is a serverless compute service that runs custom code triggered by events. It requires writing and maintaining code, not ideal for teams with limited coding experience. Option B, Azure App Service. App Service is for hosting web applications. It requires development skills to build and deploy apps and is not focused on business process automation. Option D, Azure Kubernetes Service. AKS is for deploying and managing containerized applications. It requires advanced technical skills in containers and Kubernetes, far from suitable for low-code automation. Quick memory tip: no code needed equals Logic Apps. Need custom code equals Azure Functions. Hosting web app equals App Service. Question 27. You are working on understanding all the key terms when it comes to international standards, data privacy, and data protection policies. Which of the following pertains to the following? A European policy that regulates data privacy and data protection. Options: A. Azure Government. B. GDPR. C. ISO. D. NIST. Key phrases: European policy, data privacy, data protection. All three point to one regulation. This is a straightforward compliance terminology question. Answer: B. Correct answer: B. GDPR. GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, is a landmark European Union regulation that governs how organizations collect, store, process, and protect the personal data of EU residents. It applies to any organization worldwide that handles EU citizen data, with heavy penalties for non-compliance. Azure provides GDPR compliance tools and documentation to help customers meet their obligations. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure Government. Azure Government is a dedicated cloud for U.S. government agencies, not a European data policy. Option C, ISO. ISO creates global technical and quality standards across industries. It is not a government regulation, and it does not specifically focus on European data privacy. Option D, NIST. NIST is a U.S. government standards body. It has no authority or relevance to European data privacy regulation. Quick memory tip: GDPR, Europe data privacy. Easy rule: G equals general EU data, N equals NIST US Gov, I equal ISO international. Question 28. You are working on understanding all the key terms when it comes to international standards, data privacy, and data protection policies. Which of the following pertains to the following? A dedicated public cloud for federal and state agencies in the United States. Options: A. Azure Government. B. GDPR. C. ISO. D. NIST. Key phrases: dedicated public cloud, federal and state agencies, United States. This describes a specific Microsoft Azure cloud offering, not a regulation or standards body. Azure Government. A. Azure Government is a physically isolated instance of Microsoft Azure built exclusively for U.S. federal, state, and local government agencies and their partners. It uses separate data centers staffed by screened U.S. citizens and meets strict compliance frameworks like FedRAMP High, ITAR, DoD IL2, IL4, IL5, and CJIS. It is classified as a dedicated public cloud, not a private cloud, because it's operated by Microsoft. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, GDPR. GDPR is a European Union data privacy regulation. It has no connection to U.S. government cloud services. Option C, ISO. ISO is a global standards organization. It certifies compliance but is not a cloud platform or government service. Option D, NIST. NIST defines U.S. government security and technology standards but is not a cloud service or deployment environment. Quick memory tip: Azure Government equals dedicated cloud, U.S. Gov only. Separate data centers. Think U.S. flag on the cloud. Question 29. Which feature collects all of the logs from various resources into a central dashboard where you can run queries, view graphs, and create alerts on certain events? Options: A. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. B. Azure Monitor. C. Event Hub. D. Azure Portal Dashboard. Key phrases: collect logs, central dashboard, run queries, view graphs, create alerts. This is a monitoring and observability question. One Azure service is the central hub for all telemetry, logs, and metrics. Correct answer: Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor is the unified monitoring platform in Azure that collects, analyzes, and acts on telemetry from cloud and on-premises environments. It aggregates logs from all resources into log analytics workspaces, supports Custo query language KQL for running queries, provides visual dashboards and workbooks, and allows you to set up alerts for specific events or thresholds. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, Microsoft Defender for Cloud. This focuses on security posture management and threat protection. While it uses some monitoring data, it is not the general-purpose log aggregation and alerting platform. Option C, Event Hub. Azure Event Hubs is a real-time data ingestion and streaming service. It captures millions of events per second from external sources. It is not a dashboard or log analysis tool. Option D, Azure Portal Dashboard. The Azure Portal Dashboard provides a customizable overview of your Azure resources, but does not collect logs, run queries, or create alerts natively. Quick memory tip: Azure Monitor equals logs, queries, plus graphs, alerts. One-stop shop for everything monitoring in Azure. Question 30. Which service could help you manage the VMs that your developers and testers need to ensure that your new app works across various operating systems? Options: A. Azure Test Labs. B. Azure Repos. C. Azure Dev Test Labs. Key phrases: manage VMs, developers and testers, various operating systems. This is about provisioning test environments quickly. One Azure service is specifically designed to spin up and manage dev test VM environments efficiently. Correct answer: Azure Dev Test Labs. Azure Dev Test Labs allows teams to quickly create, provision, and manage Windows and Linux VM environments for development and testing. It supports automated VM provisioning with reusable templates, enforces cost controls like auto shutdown, and enables developers to self-serve test environments across multiple OS configurations, perfect for cross-platform app testing. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, Azure Test Labs. Azure Test Labs is not a real Azure service. It is a distractor option. The correct service name is Azure Dev Test Labs. Option B, Azure Repos. Azure Repos is a source code management repository, like GitHub, within Azure DevOps. It stores and manages code but has no functionality to provision or manage VMs for testing. Quick memory tip: Dev Test Labs equals Dev Test VMs on demand. Auto shutdown saves costs. Repo equals store your code, not Test Labs, Dev Test Labs. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 31. Your company is planning to move several servers to Azure. The company's compliance policy states that a server named Special Server must be on a separate network segment. You are evaluating Azure services that can be used to meet the compliance policy requirements. Which Azure solution should you recommend? Options: A VPN gateway for special server and a virtual network gateway for each other server. B, one resource group for all the servers and a resource lock for special server. C, a virtual network for special server and another virtual network for all the other servers. D, a resource group for special server and another resource group for all the other servers. Key phrase: separate network segment. This is about network isolation, not just logical grouping. You need a solution that physically separates network communication between servers. Correct answer: a virtual network for special server and another virtual network for all the other servers. Azure Virtual Networks, VNets, provide network-level isolation. By placing special server in its own VNet and all other servers in a separate VNet, the two groups cannot communicate with each other by default, unless explicitly connected via VNet peering or a VPN gateway. This meets the compliance requirement of a separate network segment cleanly and effectively. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, VPN gateway for special server. A VPN gateway is used to send encrypted traffic between Azure VNets and on-premises networks over the internet. It does not isolate a server into a separate network segment within Azure. Option B, one resource group with a resource lock. Resource groups are for logical organization and management of resources. A resource lock only prevents accidental deletion or modification. Servers in the same VNet can still communicate freely regardless of resource groups or locks. Option D, separate resource groups. Just like option B, resource groups provide logical separation, not network isolation. Servers in different resource groups, but the same VNet can still talk to each other. Quick memory tip: separate network equals separate VNet. Resource groups logical only. VNet equals true network isolation. Question 32, exam note. This question requires you to evaluate the text inside to determine if it is correct. An Azure availability zone can be used to protect from an Azure data center failure. Select no change needed if the above statement is correct. Otherwise, select the correct answer. Options: A physical server failure. B, a storage failure. C, an Azure region failure. D, no change needed. This is an evaluate a statement question about Azure availability zones. You need to confirm whether availability zones protect against a data center failure specifically. Correct answer: no change needed. Azure availability zones are physically separate data centers within the same Azure region, each with their own independent power, cooling, and networking. If one data center zone fails, workloads deployed across multiple zones continue running in the other zones. This is precisely what availability zones are designed for, protecting against data center level failures with a 99.9%. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, a physical server failure. A single physical server failure is handled by Azure's underlying infrastructure automatically. Fault domains, hardware redundancy. You don't need availability zones specifically for this. Option B, a storage failure. Storage failures are addressed by Azure storage redundancy options like LRS, ZRS, GRS, not specifically by availability zones alone. Option C, an Azure region failure. Availability zones only protect within a single region. If the entire region fails, you need disaster recovery with cross-region replication. Availability zones cannot help here. Quick memory tip: availability zone equals protects against one data center going down. Whole region fails equals disaster recovery needed. Question 33, exam note. This question requires you to evaluate the text inside to determine if it is correct. As a best practice, all resources that are part of an application and share the same lifecycle should exist in the same resource group. Select no change needed if the above statement is correct. Otherwise, select the correct answer. Options: A, management group. B, availability set. C, no change needed. D, region. This is an evaluate the statement question about Azure resource organization. Key phrase: share the same lifecycle. Which Azure construct is designed exactly for this? Correct answer: no change needed. Resource groups are specifically designed to hold resources that share the same lifecycle, deployed together, managed together, and deleted together. This is a core Azure best practice. When all parts of an application live in one resource group, you can manage, monitor, and delete the entire application as a single unit. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, management group. Management groups organize multiple subscriptions into a hierarchy for governance. They have nothing to do with grouping individual resources by lifecycle. Option B, availability set. Availability sets protect VMs from hardware failures within a data center using fault and update domains. They are not for organizing resources by lifecycle. Option D, region. A region is a geographic area containing Azure data centers. Resources in the same region are physically close, but a region is not a logical grouping container for lifecycle management. Quick memory tip. Same lifecycle, same resource group. Deploy together, manage together, delete together. Question 34. The compute options give you different levels of control over the configuration of the environment in which your application runs. Which of the following lists the compute options in order of your control from most control to least control? Options. A. Virtual machines, containers, serverless computing. B. Containers, serverless computing, virtual machines. C. All are the same level of controls. D. Serverless computing, containers, virtual machines. This question tests your understanding of the control spectrum across Azure compute models. Think, which model gives you the most decisions to make? OS, networking, runtime. Correct answer. Virtual machines, containers, serverless computing. Virtual machines, IaaS, give you the most control. You choose the OS, install software, configure networking, and manage everything. Containers abstract the OS layer, but you still control the app runtime and dependencies. Serverless, Azure Functions, gives you the least control. You only write code, and Azure manages everything else, including the infrastructure, OS, and scaling. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, containers, serverless, VMs. This order is completely reversed at the VM end. VMs always provide the most control, not the least. Option C, all are the same level. This is false. Each compute model offers a distinctly different level of control and management responsibility. Option D, serverless, containers, VMs. This is the exact opposite of the correct order. Serverless has the least control, not the most. Quick memory tip. More control, more responsibility. VMs equals full control. Containers equals medium. Serverless equals zero server management. Question 35. A company is planning on setting up a solution in Azure. The solution would have the following key requirement. Provide a service for hosting a web application. Which of the following would be best suited for this requirement? Options. A. Azure Data Lake Analytics. B. Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets. C. Azure Virtual Network. D. Azure App Service. Key phrase, hosting a web application. Straightforward PaaS hosting question. One Azure service is purpose-built specifically for web app hosting. Correct answer, D. Azure App Service. Azure App Service is a fully managed PaaS platform designed specifically for hosting web applications, REST APIs, and mobile backends. It supports multiple languages, handles OS patching, scaling, and load balancing automatically. Developers simply deploy their code, and Azure manages all the underlying infrastructure. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, Azure Data Lake Analytics. This is an on-demand big data analytics service for processing large data sets. It has no web hosting capabilities. Option B, Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets. Scale sets create and manage groups of load-balanced VMs for auto-scaling. While you could host a web app on VMs, scale sets require you to manage the OS and web server, not purpose-built for web hosting. Option C, Azure Virtual Network. A VNet is a private networking service in Azure for connecting resources securely. It does not host applications of any kind. Quick memory tip. Host a web app equals Azure App Service, PaaS. No server management needed. Just deploy your code. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 36. You are planning to deploy a static website to Azure. The website will be accessed by users worldwide and will host large video files. You need to recommend an Azure feature that must be used to provide the best video playback experience. What should you recommend? Options. A. Network interface. B. Azure Traffic Manager. C. Application Gateway. D. Azure Content Delivery Network, CDN. Key phrases, worldwide users, large video files, best playback experience. This is about low latency content delivery. You need a service that caches video files close to users globally. Correct answer, Azure Content Delivery Network, CDN. Azure CDN caches large static content, including video files, at edge locations, points of presence worldwide. When a user requests a video, it's served from the nearest edge server rather than the origin server, dramatically reducing latency and buffering. This provides the best video playback experience for global users. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, network interface. A network interface enables a VM to communicate with networks. It plays no role in delivering web content or improving video playback for end users. Option B, Azure Traffic Manager. Traffic Manager uses DNS-based routing to direct users to the best performing region. It can reduce latency, but would require hosting your app in multiple regions, much more complex and costly than CDN. Option C, Application Gateway. Application Gateway is a Layer 7 load balancer with WAF. It improves application availability and security, but does not cache or distribute video content globally. Quick memory tip: global users plus big video files equals CDN. Cache content at the edge. Less distance equals faster playback. Question 37. You are planning to map a network drive from several computers that run Windows 10 to Azure Storage. You need to create a storage solution in Azure for the planned map drive. What should you create? Options: A, Blob service in a storage account. B, Azure SQL database. C, virtual machine data disk. D, files service in a storage account. Key phrase: map a network drive from Windows 10 computers. This needs SMB protocol support. Only one Azure storage type supports drive mapping natively. Correct answer: files service in a storage account. Azure Files provides fully managed cloud file shares accessible via the SMB, Server Message Block Protocol, the same protocol used by Windows for network drives. Multiple Windows 10 computers can map the Azure file share as a network drive simultaneously with both read and write access, just like a traditional on-premises file server. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, Blob service. Azure Blob Storage is for unstructured data, images, videos, backups, accessed via REST API or HTTP/HTTPS. It cannot be mapped as a network drive. Option B, Azure SQL Database. SQL Database is a relational database for structured data. It cannot function as a file share or network drive. Option C, Virtual Machine Data Disk. A VM data disk is a managed disk that can only be attached to one VM at a time. It cannot be shared across multiple Windows 10 computers as a network drive. Quick memory tip: map a network drive equals Azure Files SMB, multiple computers, shared access. Blob equals API access only. Question 38. How can the IT department use biometric properties, such as facial recognition, to enable delivery drivers to prove their identities? Options: A, SSO, B, Azure Policy, C, multi-factor authentication, D, conditional access. Key phrase: biometric properties such as facial recognition. This is about identity verification factors. Think about which identity method includes something you are, biometrics. Correct answer: multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, verifies identity using multiple factors: something you know, password; something you have, phone token; and something you are, biometrics like facial recognition or fingerprint. Biometric verification falls under the something you are factor of MFA, making it the correct choice for using facial recognition to prove identity. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, SSO, single sign-on allows users to authenticate once and access multiple apps. It uses a username password. It does not use biometric properties to verify identity. Option B, Azure Policy. Azure Policy enforces compliance rules on Azure resources such as VMs and storage. It has no capability to verify user identity through biometrics. Option D, Conditional access. Conditional access grants or blocks access based on conditions like device compliance, location, and user risk. While it can require MFA as a condition, it does not itself perform biometric verification. Quick memory tip: biometrics equals something you are equals MFA factor. Face, fingerprint, retina all fall under MFA's third factor. Question 39. A company is planning on setting up a solution in Azure. The solution would have the following key requirement: provide a cloud service that helps to transform data and provide valuable insights on the data itself. Which of the following would be best suited for this requirement? Options: A, Azure Data Lake Analytics; B, Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets; C, Azure Virtual Network; D, Azure App Service. Key phrases: transform data and valuable insights. This is a data analytics requirement. One Azure service is purpose-built for large-scale data transformation and analytics. Correct answer. Azure Data Lake Analytics. Azure Data Lake Analytics is an on-demand analytics job service that simplifies big data processing. It allows you to write queries to transform, process, and extract insights from massive data sets without managing any infrastructure. You only pay when your analytics jobs are running, making it cost-effective and scalable for data transformation workloads. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets. Scale sets manage groups of load-balanced VMs for compute scaling. They are infrastructure tools, not data analytics or transformation services. Option C, Azure Virtual Network. A VNet provides private networking within Azure. It has no data processing or analytics capabilities. Option D, Azure App Service. App Service is a web application hosting platform. It is used to deploy and run web apps, not to transform data or generate analytics insights. Quick memory tip, transform data plus insights equals Azure Data Lake Analytics. Pay per job, no infrastructure to manage. Question 40. A company has set up a virtual machine as part of their purchase subscription. They now want to move the virtual machine to another subscription. Is this possible? Options. A, yes. B, no. This question tests whether you know that Azure resources can be moved between subscriptions. A common misconception is that resources are locked to their original subscription. Correct answer? A, yes. Azure supports moving resources, including virtual machines, between subscriptions using the Azure portal, Azure CLI, or PowerShell via the Move as Resource command. Both the source and destination subscriptions must be associated with the same Microsoft Entra ID, Azure AD tenant. The VM and its dependent resources, disk, NIC, VNet, need to be moved together. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, no. This is incorrect. Azure explicitly supports cross-subscription resource moves. This is a supported and documented feature in Azure Resource Manager. Quick memory tip. Azure VMs can move between subscriptions, as long as both subscriptions are in the same Entra ID tenant. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 41. Your company plans to migrate all its network resources to Azure. You need to start the planning process for migration. What should you create first? Options. A, subscription. B, resource group. C, virtual network. D, management group. Key phrase, first step in migrating to Azure. What is the foundational requirement before anything else? Think about what every Azure resource must be associated with before it can be deployed. Correct answer, subscription. An Azure subscription is the billing and access boundary that must exist before any resource can be deployed. Every Azure resource, VMs, storage, networks, must belong to a subscription so that billing can be processed. Without a subscription, you cannot create resource groups, virtual networks, or any other Azure service. It is always the first step. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, resource group. A resource group is a logical container for resources, but it must be created inside a subscription. You cannot have a resource group without a subscription first. Option C, virtual network. A virtual network is a networking resource that requires both a subscription and a resource group to exist before it can be created. Option D, management group. Management groups are used to organize multiple subscriptions. You still need a subscription first. Management groups sit above subscriptions in the hierarchy. Quick memory tip, Azure hierarchy, management group, subscription, resource group, resource. Subscription is always step one. Question 42. A company has 100 machines in their on-premise environment. They want to extend their infrastructure without too much extra capital or operational expenditure. Which of the following could they opt to carry out for this requirement? Options. A, migrate all to the public cloud. B, move all to the private cloud. C, have a hybrid architecture. D, move just 50 machines to the public cloud. Key phrase, extend infrastructure without too much extra CapEx or OpEx. Minimize cost while gaining more capacity. The existing 100 machines stay, and new capacity is added via cloud. Correct answer. C, have a hybrid architecture. A hybrid architecture keeps existing on-premises machines running. No migration cost equals low CapEx, while extending capacity into the public cloud for new resources. Pay-as-you-go, low OpEx. This approach maximizes the value of existing infrastructure investment while leveraging cloud elasticity for growth, the most cost-efficient option. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, migrate all to the public cloud. Migrating all 100 existing machines involves significant migration costs, effort, and potential downtime, increasing both CapEx and OpEx unnecessarily. Option B, move all to the private cloud. Building or expanding a private cloud requires purchasing new hardware, data center space, and staffing. Huge CapEx investment. Option D, move just 50 machines to the public cloud. Migrating 50 machines still incurs migration costs for those machines. Hybrid architecture avoids migration costs entirely by keeping existing machines on premises. Quick memory tip, extend without big cost equals hybrid. Keep what you have, plus add cloud capacity. Best of both worlds. Question 43. A support engineer plans to perform several Azure management tasks by using the Azure PowerShell. You need to tell the support engineer which tools to use to run the PowerShell. Which 3 tools should you instruct the support engineer to use? Options: A, Windows PowerShell. B, use PowerShell in Azure Cloud Shell. C, macOS PowerShell Core. D, macOS PowerShell. E, Azure Resource Explorer. This question tests which environments support Azure PowerShell. Key: Azure PowerShell is cross-platform but has specific supported environments. Correct answer: Windows PowerShell. Use PowerShell in Azure Cloud Shell. macOS PowerShell Core. Windows PowerShell supports Azure PowerShell as an add-on module for managing Azure resources from Windows. Azure Cloud Shell is a browser-based shell that includes both Bash and PowerShell, accessible from any device. macOS PowerShell Core is the cross-platform version of PowerShell that runs on macOS and Linux. Azure PowerShell is fully supported on it. Why the other options are wrong? Option D, macOS PowerShell. Standard PowerShell, not Core, does not run on macOS. Only PowerShell Core is compatible with macOS. This is a classic distractor. Option E, Azure Resource Explorer. Azure Resource Explorer is a web tool for discovering Azure REST APIs and browsing resource configurations. It is not a PowerShell execution environment. Quick memory tip: Azure PowerShell runs on Windows PS, Cloud Shell, macOS PS Core, not macOS PowerShell old version, only Core. Question 44. Exam note: drag the appropriate term from the column on the left to its description on the right. Match each Azure DevOps tool to its correct description. This drag and drop question tests your knowledge of the 4 core Azure DevOps services. Know each tool's exact purpose. They are commonly tested and easy to mix up. Correct answer B, Azure Repos, a centralized source code repository where software developers can publish their code for review and collaboration. Azure Boards, agile project management suite that includes Kanban boards, reporting, and tracking ideas, and work from high-level epics to work items and issues. Azure Artifacts, a repository for hosting bundles, such as compiled source code, which can be fed into testing or deployment pipeline steps. Azure Test Plans, an automated test tool that can be used in a CI/CD pipeline to ensure quality before a software release. Each Azure DevOps tool has a distinct purpose. Repos equals source code management, like GitHub. Boards equals work item and sprint tracking, like Jira. Artifacts equals package management for build outputs, like NuGet NPM feeds. Test plans, manual and automated testing in CI/CD pipelines. Together, they form a complete DevOps toolchain. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, incorrectly maps repos to Agile PM, that's boards, and boards to source code, that's repos, swap definitions. Option C, incorrectly assigns artifacts to source code repository. Artifacts host build packages, not raw source code. Option D, assigns repos to automated test tool. That belongs to test plans. Quick memory tip: repos equals code, boards equals tasks, artifacts equals packages, test plans equals testing. Remember, RBAC. Question 45. A company wants to migrate some scripts to Azure. They want to make use of the serverless features available in Azure. They decide to use the Azure Virtual Machine Service. Would this service meet the requirement? Options: A, yes, B, no. This tests whether you know that virtual machines are not serverless. Serverless equals no server management. VMs equals full server management. Correct answer: B, no, Azure Virtual Machines are an IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service offering. You are responsible for managing the OS, patching, scaling, and configuration. This is the opposite of serverless. VMs require significant server management. The correct serverless option for running scripts and code is Azure Functions, which requires zero infrastructure management. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, yes. This is incorrect. Serverless means you write code and the platform handles all infrastructure automatically. VMs require you to provision, configure, and maintain the underlying server. Quick memory tip, VM equals IaaS. You manage the server, not serverless. Serverless, Azure Functions, no server, no management. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within next 24 hours. Question 46. A company wants to start using Azure. They want to have a declarative way to orchestrate the deployment of various resources types, such as role assignments and policy assignments. They decide to use Azure Blueprints. Would this fulfill the requirement? Options: A, no, B, yes. Key phrase, declarative way to orchestrate deployment of multiple resource types, including role and policy assignments. This tests your knowledge of Azure Blueprints and what it can deploy. Correct answer? Yes. Azure Blueprints is a declarative orchestration service that enables cloud architects to define a repeatable set of Azure resources, including role assignments, policy assignments, ARM templates, and resource groups, and deploy them consistently across environments. It ensures governance standards are enforced at deployment time, making it perfect for this requirement. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, no, this is incorrect. Azure Blueprints is explicitly designed as a declarative deployment tool that supports role assignments and policy assignments as first-class artifacts. Quick memory tip. Azure Blueprints equals declarative deployment package, roles plus policies, ARM templates, resource groups. Blueprint equals complete governance package. Question 47. How do you get access to services in private preview mode? Options. A, you must agree to terms of use first. B, you must apply to use them. C, they are available in the marketplace. You simply use them. D, you cannot use private preview services. Tests your knowledge of the Azure service lifecycle, specifically the private preview phase. What is the access requirement to use a private preview feature? Correct answer. You must apply to use them. In private preview, an Azure feature is available to select customers only for evaluation purposes. You must apply to Microsoft, usually via a nomination or sign-up form, and be approved before gaining access. This is different from public preview, where anyone can use the feature freely. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, you must agree to terms of use first. Agreeing to terms of use is part of public preview access, not the defining characteristic of private preview. Private preview requires an application and approval. Option C, available in the marketplace. Features in the marketplace are generally available, GA, or public preview. Private preview features are not publicly listed in the marketplace. Option D, you cannot use private preview services. This is false. You can use private preview services, but only after being accepted through the application process. Quick memory tip, private previews apply first, wait for approval. Public preview available to everyone. GA equals fully released. Question 48. A company wants to migrate some scripts to Azure. They want to make use of the serverless features available in Azure. They decide to use the Azure Content Delivery Network service. Would this service meet the requirement? Options. A, yes. B, no. This tests whether you know that Azure CDN is not a serverless compute service. CDN is for content delivery, not for running scripts or code. Correct answer? B, no. Azure CDN, Content Delivery Network, is a service for caching and delivering web content, like images, videos, and static files, from edge locations closer to users. It is a networking content delivery service, not a compute or serverless platform. It cannot execute scripts or run application code. The correct serverless service for running scripts is Azure Functions. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, yes, this is incorrect. CDN has no capability to execute code or run scripts. It purely serves cached content to end users. Quick memory tip, CDN equals deliver content fast, not run code. Serverless code execution, Azure Functions only. Question 49. A company is planning on using an entire suite of Microsoft products. Which of the following belongs to the category of software as a service, SaaS? Options. A, Azure Virtual Machine Service, Microsoft Office 365. C, Azure App Service. D, Azure Content Delivery Network Service. Tests your ability to correctly classify Microsoft services into IaaS or SaaS. Key: SaaS equals fully ready to use software delivered over the internet. Correct answer: B, Microsoft Office 365. Microsoft Office 365. Microsoft 365 is a classic example of SaaS. You simply log in and use fully ready applications, Word, Excel, Teams, Outlook, over the internet. Microsoft manages everything: the infrastructure, platform, application updates, and security. The user only manages their data and account settings. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, Azure Virtual Machine Service. VMs are IaaS. You manage the OS, middleware, and applications. You have full infrastructure control. Option C, Azure App Service. App Service is PaaS. Microsoft manages the platform and infrastructure, but you manage your application code and data. Option D, Azure Content Delivery Network Service. CDN is a PaaS networking service. Microsoft manages the CDN infrastructure, and you configure content delivery rules. It is not a ready-to-use end-user application. Quick memory tip: SaaS equals just use the app, Office 365 Dynamics. PaaS equals build on the platform. IaaS equals manage the infrastructure. Question 50. Your Azure environment contains multiple Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that a virtual machine named MyVM is accessible from the internet over HTTP. Options: A, you modify an Azure Firewall. B, you modify a DDoS protection plan. C, you modify an Azure Traffic Manager profile. Key phrase: accessible from the internet over HTTP. You need to allow inbound HTTP traffic to a VM. Which Azure service controls inbound, outbound internet connectivity rules for VMs? Azure Category Networking Security. Correct answer: you modify an Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall is a managed, cloud-based network security service that controls inbound and outbound internet connectivity for Azure resources. By creating an application rule or network rule in Azure Firewall to allow HTTP port 80 traffic to my VM's IP address, you enable internet access over HTTP. Azure Firewall operates centrally and can protect multiple VMs and VNets. Why the other options are wrong? Option B, you modify a DDoS protection plan. DDoS protection defends against large-scale volumetric attacks. It does not control or configure which ports or protocols are allowed for internet access to a VM. Option C, you modify an Azure Traffic Manager profile. Traffic Manager is a DNS-based global load balancer that routes users to the best regional endpoint. It does not manage firewall rules or control HTTP access to individual VMs. Quick memory tip: allow internet HTTP to VM equals Azure Firewall rules. DDoS equals protect from attacks. Traffic Manager equals route global traffic. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 51. Exam note. This question requires you to evaluate the text inside to determine if it is correct. Authorization is the process of verifying a user's credentials. Select no change needed if the above statement is correct. Otherwise, select the correct answer. Options: A, ticketing. B, authentication. C, federation. D, no change needed. This is an evaluate the statement question about two commonly confused security terms. Key: verifying credentials equals authentication or authorization. Correct answer: authentication. Authentication is the process of verifying who you are, confirming your credentials, username, password, biometrics. Authorization is the process of determining what you're allowed to do after your identity is confirmed. The statement incorrectly uses authorization when it should say authentication. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, ticketing. Ticketing is not a standard identity verification term in Azure or security frameworks. It is not relevant here. Option C, federation. Federation is the process of establishing trust between identity providers, like linking your corporate identity to a third-party app via SAML or OAuth. It is not the process of verifying user credentials directly. Option D, no change needed. This is incorrect because the original statement uses authorization, which is wrong. The correct term is authentication. Quick memory tip: authentication equals K, know who you are. Verify credentials. Authorization equals what you're allowed to do. Permissions. Question 52. A company wants to host a set of tables in Azure. They want absolutely zero administration of the underlying infrastructure and low latency access to data. You recommend using the Cosmos DB service? Would this suit the requirement? Options: A, yes, B, no. 2 requirements. 1, zero infrastructure administration, and 2, low latency access. Does Cosmos DB satisfy both conditions? Correct answer, yes. Azure Cosmos DB is a fully managed, globally distributed NoSQL database. Microsoft handles all infrastructure management, including patching, scaling, backups, and replication. It also provides single-digit millisecond latency for reads and writes worldwide. Cosmos DB includes a table API that supports Azure Table Storage compatible workloads, making it perfect for hosting tables with zero administration and low latency. Why the other options are wrong? Option B, no, this is incorrect. Cosmos DB is a fully managed service, zero administration, with guaranteed low latency. It meets both requirements perfectly. Quick memory tip, Cosmos DB equals fully managed plus low latency global distribution. Tables, JSON, graphs, all supported. Zero admin. Question 53. Your company plans to move several servers to Azure. The company's compliance policy states that a server named FinServer must be on a separate network segment. You are evaluating which Azure services can be used to meet the compliance policy requirements. Which Azure solution should you recommend? Options. A resource group for FinServer and another resource group for all the other servers. B, a virtual network for FinServer and another virtual network for all the other servers. C, a VPN for FinServer and a virtual network gateway for each other server. D, one resource group for all the servers and a resource lock for FinServer. Key phrase, separate network segment. This requires true network level isolation. Similar to Q31, but with a different server name, FinServer. Same concept applies. Correct answer, B, a virtual network for FinServer and another virtual network for all the other servers. Separate Azure Virtual Networks, VNets, provide true network isolation. By placing FinServer in its own dedicated VNet, it is completely isolated from all other servers in the second VNet. By default, VNets cannot communicate with each other. FinServer is on a truly separate network segment, satisfying the compliance requirement. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, separate resource groups. Resource groups provide logical organization only, not network isolation. Servers in different resource groups but the same VNet can still communicate freely. Option C, VPN for FinServer. A VPN gateway is used for connecting on-premises networks to Azure over an encrypted tunnel. It does not create a separate network segment for a single server. Option D, resource lock for FinServer. A resource lock prevents deletion or modification of a resource. It has no impact on network communication between servers. Quick memory tip, separate network equals separate VNet. Resource group equals logical only. VNet equals true network boundary. Question 54. Note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Your company plans to purchase Azure. The company's support policy states that the Azure environment must provide an option to access support engineers by phone or email. You need to recommend which support plan meets the support policy requirement. Solution: recommend a basic support plan. Does this meet the goal? Options: A, yes. B, no. This tests your knowledge of Azure support plans, specifically what the basic plan includes. Key requirement: phone or email access to support engineers. Correct answer B. The Azure Basic Support Plan includes only billing and subscription management support, access to documentation, and community forums. It does not include any technical support from engineers via phone or email. To get phone or email access to technical support engineers, you need at minimum the developer plan, email only, or standard plan, email plus phone. Why the other options are wrong? Option A, yes, this is incorrect. Basic plan has zero technical engineer support. The company's requirement for phone or email support cannot be met with a basic plan. Quick memory tip, basic equals no tech support. Need engineer help? Minimum equals developer email or standard phone plus email. Question 55, hotspot. You plan to implement an Azure database solution. You need to implement a database solution that meets the following requirements. 1, can add data concurrently from multiple regions. 2, can store JSON documents. Which database service should you deploy? To answer, select the appropriate service in the answer area. Options: A, SQL Data Warehouse. B, Azure Cosmos DB. C, SQL Elastic Pools. D, SQL Servers. 2 requirements: multi-region concurrent writes and JSON document storage. You need a globally distributed, multi-model database, not a traditional SQL service. Correct answer, Azure Cosmos DB. Azure Cosmos DB is a globally distributed, multi-model database that natively supports multi-region writes. Data can be added simultaneously from multiple regions with low latency. It also natively supports JSON document storage via its core SQL API and Mongo API. Both requirements are met out of the box with minimal configuration. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, SQL Data Warehouse, Azure Synapse Analytics, designed for large-scale analytical queries, OLAP workloads, not transactional multi-region concurrent writes. Does not natively store JSON documents. Option C, SQL Elastic Pools. Elastic Pools manage multiple Azure SQL databases sharing resources. They are relational databases with no built-in multi-region write capability. Option D, SQL Servers. Azure SQL Database is a relational database, OLTP. While it can store JSON as text, it does not provide native multi-region concurrent write support. Quick memory tip. Multi-region writes JSON equals Cosmos DB. Global, fast, flexible. SQL equals relational, single-region primary writes. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 56. A team of developers at your company plans to deploy and then remove 50 virtual machines each week. All the virtual machines are configured by using Azure Resource Manager templates. You need to recommend which Azure service will minimize the administrative effort required to deploy and remove the virtual machines. What should you recommend? Options. A. Azure Reserved Virtual Machines VM instances. B. Azure DevTest Labs. C. Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets. D. Microsoft Managed Desktop. Key phrases. Deploy and remove 50 VMs each week, plus minimize administrative effort using ARM templates. You need a service built for rapidly provisioning and deprovisioning dev test VM environments. Correct answer, B. Azure DevTest Labs. Azure DevTest Labs is purpose-built for this exact scenario. It allows teams to rapidly deploy VMs using ARM templates with predefined configurations and then automatically deprovision them on a schedule, auto shutdown policies. It minimizes administrative effort by enabling self-service VM deployment with governance controls, ideal for weekly dev test cycles. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, Azure Reserved VM Instances. Reserved instances are a billing discount for committing to 1 or 3 years of VM usage. They reduce cost, but do not help with automated provisioning or deprovisioning of VMs. Option C, Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets. Scale sets are for auto-scaling identical VMs based on load. They are designed for production workloads, not for weekly deploy remove dev test cycles. Option D, Microsoft Managed Desktop. Microsoft Managed Desktop is a managed Windows 10/11 desktop service for end users, not for developer VM lifecycle management. Quick memory tip, deploy plus remove VMs regularly equals Azure DevTest Labs. ARM templates auto shutdown equals minimal admin effort. Question 57, which service provides serverless computing in Azure? Options, A, Azure Virtual Machines, B, Azure Functions, C, Azure Storage Account, D, Azure Container Instances. Straightforward question. Which Azure service is the primary serverless compute offering? B. Azure Functions. Azure Functions is Azure's primary serverless compute service. You write event-triggered code functions, and Azure handles all the infrastructure, provisioning, scaling, patching, and management. You only pay for the time your code executes. Functions can be triggered by HTTP requests, timers, queue messages, blob storage events, and more. Why the other options are wrong. Option A. Azure Virtual Machines. VMs are IaaS. You manage the entire server, including OS, patches, and configurations, the complete opposite of serverless. Option C, Azure Storage Account. Azure Storage is a data storage service for blobs, files, queues, and tables. It does not execute code or provide a compute platform. Option D, Azure Container Instances, ACI. ACI allows you to run containers on demand without managing VMs. While it reduces infrastructure management, it is not classified as serverless. You still define and manage the container configuration. Quick memory tip, serverless equals Azure Functions. Write code, trigger it, pay only when it runs. No servers, no OS, no worries. Question 58, which Azure service provides a set of version control tools to manage code? Options, A, Azure Repos, B, Azure DevTest Labs, C, Azure Storage, D, Azure Cosmos DB. Key phrase, version control tools to manage code, straightforward DevOps tooling question. One Azure DevOps service is specifically built for source code version control. Correct answer, A, Azure Repos. Azure Repos is a set of version control tools within Azure DevOps that supports both Git, distributed version control, and TFVC, Team Foundation version control. Developers use it to store, share, and collaborate on code with features like pull requests, branch policies, and code review workflows, similar to GitHub. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, Azure DevTest Labs. DevTest Labs creates and manages VM environments for development and testing. It is not a version control or source code management tool. Option C, Azure Storage. Azure Storage is a data storage service for files, blobs, queues, and tables. It has no version control or code management capabilities. Option D, Azure Cosmos DB. Cosmos DB is a globally distributed NoSQL database. It stores application data, not source code or version history. Quick memory tip. Azure Repos equals version control for code, Git or TFVC. Think Repos repository code storage with history. Question 59. Which service provides network traffic filtering across multiple Azure subscriptions and virtual networks? Options: A, Azure Firewall. B, an application security group. C, Azure DDoS protection. D, a network security group, NSG. Key phrase, across multiple subscriptions and virtual networks. This is about centralized enterprise-scale filtering. Which service can apply traffic filtering at scale across many VNets and subscriptions? Correct answer, A, Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall is a fully managed, stateful network security service that can be deployed centrally in a hub VNet and filter traffic across multiple spoke VNets and subscriptions via hub-spoke topology. You can create, enforce, and log application and network connectivity policies centrally, making it the ideal solution for enterprise-wide traffic filtering across multiple subscriptions. Why the other options are wrong. Option B, Application Security Group, ASG. ASGs allow you to group VMs logically and define NSG rules based on those groups. They operate within a single VNet and cannot span multiple subscriptions. Option C, Azure DDoS protection. DDoS protection defends against large-scale volumetric attacks. It does not filter or control regular application or network traffic flows. Option D, Network Security Group, NSG. NSGs apply allow-deny rules at the subnet or NIC level within a single VNet. They cannot centrally manage traffic filtering across multiple subscriptions and VNets. Quick memory tip. Azure Firewall equals central filtering across multiple VNet subscriptions. NSG, single VNet only. DDoS is attack protection only. Question 60. Which statement accurately describes the modern lifecycle policy for Azure services? Options. A, Microsoft provides mainstream support for a service for 5 years. B, Microsoft provides a minimum of 12 months notice before ending support for a service. C, after a service is made generally available, Microsoft provides support for the service for a minimum of 4 years. D, when a service is retired, you can purchase extended support for the service for up to 5 years. This tests your knowledge of Microsoft's modern lifecycle policy for Azure services. Focus on the specific notification period Microsoft commits to before retiring a service. Azure category, Azure Service Lifecycle Support. Correct answer, B. Microsoft provides a minimum of 12 months notice before ending support for a service. Under the modern lifecycle policy, Microsoft commits to giving customers a minimum of 12 months prior notification before ending support for an Azure service, as long as a successor product or service is not being offered. This gives organizations enough time to plan migrations and transitions away from retiring services. Why the other options are wrong. Option A, 5 years mainstream support. The 5 years mainstream support timeframe applies to Microsoft's fixed lifecycle policy used for on-premises products like Windows Server, not the modern lifecycle policy used for Azure cloud services. Option C, minimum 4 years after GA. The modern lifecycle policy does not specify a fixed support duration of 4 years after general availability. It focuses on the notification period before retirement, not a minimum support duration. Option D, purchase extended support for 5 years. Extended support purchase options apply to fixed lifecycle policy products, like older Windows Server versions. Azure services under modern lifecycle policy do not offer purchasable extended support extensions. Quick memory tip. Modern lifecycle policy equals 12 months notice before retirement. Azure cloud services. Not 5 years. That's fixed lifecycle on-prem.